hey, it is a Friday afternoon.
Yes, it is.
And that can only mean one thing, ladies and gentlemen.
It's Friday afternoon.
It's Friday afternoon at around 3 o'clock. It is it's an all-blue preview. Facebook Live Friday. Dave Baker and Brian Milam here. And a lot going on. Boy, since we were here on this 2 weeks ago, we have had a lot of stuff going down. And we've got Keeneland today. At the fall meet is opening, the first of the 3-week fall meet, and some big stakes races later today.
Fall Stars weekend.
That's what he said. And to what? What'd you say?
It's Fall Stars weekend.
Fall Stars.
There are 8 win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup.
Fall Starts. I was like, Fall Starts.
And so
not talking about penalties.
We sometimes veer off the beaten path here. So I would say Keeneland is having its richest ever stakes race tomorrow. It's the Coolmore Turf. What is it, like 1.2, 1.4? I think it's 1.2.
It's up there, man. It is up there.
Do you know who the favorite is?
You will tell me, because I do not have my racing form in front of me. My daily racing form.
Carl Spackler.
You know, greenskeeper about to become the Masters champion.
Carl Spackler was the name of the greenskeeper, played by Bill Murray in Caddyshack. And so we were out there this morning, and I was doing a live hit with Scott Hazelton, who hosts today at Keeneland.
Right.
And I said, do you think if Carl Spackler wins, that we could hear Kurt Becker say, from greenskeeper to Keeneland champion? And he goes, I guarantee you won't hear that.
It would be really cool. It'd be really cool if the ownership had another horse that was in the same stall, the same barn, and its horse's name was Gunga Galunga.
Oh my gosh. That would be...
If you've not seen Caddyshack, certain people of an older generation, we can quote the movie left and right.
Yes, we can.
You'll get nothing like it, but we will. It's a great movie, and Carl Spackler was the character Bill Murray played in that classic movie. But as I mentioned, Keeneland is underway today. You mentioned the stakes races. We lost one of the greatest heroes, not of just this region. But
for us, some thought he was one of the greatest villains.
Yeah, Pete Rose passing away a couple of weeks ago, and then James Earl Jones passes away a couple of weeks ago, and then Cleo McDowell coming to America.
Oh, that's right.
Good times.
John Amos,
he passed. Some heavyweight
We
players.
lost Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, I mean, golly, it has been a tough couple of weeks. But quickly want to talk about Pete Rose for a minute, because the football Wildcats are off this weekend, so we get to talk about something else. And Pete Rose, I mentioned on a radio show that he is that tragic figure, that tragic hero. He was so great, but had so many flaws as well. And and he is a Hall of Famer, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. The greatest player, I think people don't talk about enough, because he was not the fastest. He was not the best, the strongest running arm. He played so many positions, you couldn't single him in as a third baseman, a second baseman, a first baseman, a left fielder, or a right fielder, even though he played more than 500 games in 5 different spots. 17-time All-Star. It's leader. But when you talk about the great players, you rarely hear Pete Rose's name mentioned, because all he did was blue-collar grind and grind and grind. He's not a Ted Williams. He wasn't graceful like Joe DiMaggio, no power like a Barry Bonds or Hank Aaron. And you don't hear Hank Aaron's name mentioned much either in terms of the greats, because he's so quiet. Rose was awesome.
Didn't have specialized coaches.
No.
I mean, the only travel ball he played at the time was probably Legion baseball that they had up there in Cincinnati. I'm not sure if that travel team Midland was around then, but he was just a hard scrabble kid from the west side of Cincinnati who somebody in the family knew somebody, got him a tryout. He made it. Yeah, he could hit and everything, but he was known as Charlie Hustle, and that hustle is what got him there, and it made an incredible impact on so many people. My high school baseball coach, Doug Long, wore number 14 because of Pete Rose. Yeah. He also, I can still hear him screaming in my sleep, "Get off the field!" And I mean, he wanted us to sprint on and off, just like Pete did. And that the way he talks about hitting, what he did, It's amazing, but so much of that to so many people is overshadowed by what he did off the field.
And, you know, the one thing I tried to do earlier in the week when he passed, everybody knows about the gambling. Everybody knows about it. And unfortunately, it's the main staple of conversation instead of winning 3 World Series championships, being a National League MVP, being a World Series MVP, being a Rookie of the Year, 4,256 hits, 17-time All-Star at 5 different positions. But they only want to talk about the one thing. And I try to change that a little bit, talk to Doug Flynn. Yeah, you have to mention it, but I don't think you have to dwell on it, do you?
No, and I would just say this to many that refer to themselves as baseball purists.
Right.
That is the unpardonable sin.
Yeah,
there are guys that'll tell you that Rule 21, no gambling on baseball. It's in every clubhouse in English and in Spanish.
And now Japanese.
Right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And that's a valid point. And I mean, the reason is the Black Sox scandal just about shut down baseball.
Yeah, and it started decades before that, too.
Absolutely.
The first gambling epidemic or pandemic, since that's been such a popular word for 4 years, actually started with Louisville.
Oh, it absolutely did.
It started in Louisville in the 19th century.
Right. But what people will say is that was the unforgivable sin. Now, the irony of it is since that we really don't have any steroid guys who are in the Hall of Fame yet, but yet on this week when everybody in baseball is remembering Rose's career for its great moments and for its warts, virtually every team has a relationship with some gambling entity.
Sure they do.
On the other hand, okay, we kind of went through this about a year or so ago, wasn't it? When former UK assistant Brad Bohannon, who was the coach at Alabama, got pinched for giving information to somebody who used that inside information to bet against the Tide, and it cost him his job. And so, do I get it? Yeah. Do I like it? No. I mean, I just it is a very complicated thing because I think, as you know, Ron Peters, who I went to high school with, was Pete's bookie. I mean, he was the guy that took all the bets, and that's how it all started. Of course, he also had it actually started to unravel with a really large pick 6 ticket that Pete was involved with Jerry Carroll up at then Latonia, now Turfway Park. And so, you know, the problem is that Pete correctly said, and I believe, and I'll go to my grave believing he never bet against the Reds.
Sure.
But the thing that people will say, like a Johnny Bench, like a Rob Murphy, who played with him and for him, is that when he didn't bet on the Reds, he was sending a signal to other gamblers, not intentionally, but by his actions.
Sure, because people knew
that he didn't think Pete didn't bet on him tonight, so I'm going to bet against him.
Hey, we're facing Nolan Ryan. I don't think we're going to beat that guy.
Right.
And I saw something else earlier a couple of weeks ago, and I love when I drive. I don't listen to the radio too often. I listen to YouTube, just mini documentaries, you know, those 20-minute documentaries.
Absolutely, sure.
I have. And if you go back to the Reds, the best pitcher the Reds had in the 1980s was a guy named Mario Soto. Devastating changeup.
Circle change.
Oh, my gosh. He threw in the mid-90s and then would drop off that yo-yo pitch and pull it back, and several-time All-Star for the Reds. Well, when Pete Rose took over, he worked Soto to death to the point that he kept putting him out there. And Soto, let's say you're on a four-man rotation compared to a 5-man rotation. And there was an interesting documentary that said he used him so much, he basically burned him out and hurt his arm. And I thought, I wonder if he was using him to win a bet or win bets. You know, just say, I'm not accusing.
I know what you're saying.
It makes
I know what
you
you're saying.
think, though. And you're right. But again, and here we go, it doesn't take long to get down to that gambling rabbit hole.
I mean, we were just talking about this, and you haven't heard this yet, but a friend who shall remain nameless just sent me a couple of screenshots from a book by your buddy, Whitey Herzog, The White Rat.
The White Rat.
He says, Pete Rose was like Tommy, wonderful baseball man, but he was impaired when it came to handling pitchers. Here he had 3 world-class relievers, Norm Charlton, Rob Murphy, and Rob Dibble, all in the same pen. 2 were lefties. Dibble, the righty, threw 100 miles an hour. With those 3 guys on your side, you shouldn't lose games after the 6th. Not too damn many, but Pete found a way. He'd get Murphy up in the 3rd. He'd warm him up in the 4th. Then he'd sit him down. He'd get Charlton up in the 5th. And basically what he was saying was those guys were out of gas. They had warmed up so much. Sure. And then Pete would say afterwards to the media, well, how could he be tired? He hadn't pitched in 3 days. Well, he just pitched 4 innings in the bullpen.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because you don't think about, for high school pitchers, college pitchers, and pitch count, not on the field, but also in the bullpen.
Oh, sure.
Because you're letting it go. You're getting lathered up and letting it rip in the bullpen. And so there are a lot more pitches than you think about.
And I think one thing to remember is that there has been a lot made about the relationship between Pete Rose and Johnny Bench.
Yeah.
And you can go find it on YouTube. But Johnny Bench had as revealing an interview as I've heard in a long time on the Dan Patrick Show the other day. You saw it, right?
Voice cracked a couple of times.
He absolutely did. I don't know if you know this or not, but Johnny knew Patrick. During that time, he was working at Wing Radio, WING in Dayton, Ohio, and his real name is Dan Pugh. And he actually came from Dayton and played basketball for one season at EKU.
At EKU, that's right.
And
I've got a team picture with him.
That's right, that's right. Then he went back to get in the media business, so those two knew each other. And I think, Pete, it's kind of like when somebody kills themselves. It's tragic. But then the people around him not only are incredibly sad, but they're hurt and they're angry.
Sure.
Why did you do this? People tried to help you. And he talked about the times that he and Mike Schmidt and Joe Morgan had gone to commissioners. They had gone to Pete. And I think at one time, Johnny said, the thing that makes you so mad is Pete did this to himself. And I mean, he was, he could be a really crass guy. He could be a really fun guy to be around. But he was just that rough kid from Cincinnati. There was a time the Reds caravan used to come around. And I don't know if you remember this, but some people will, down at the old Marriott, not the old Marriott, but the Marriott Griffin Gate.
Sure.
Okay, before they remodeled it and before technology kicked in, you would go in that hallway there where all the banquet rooms were.
Okay.
And there would be a line of payphones.
Oh, that's exactly
right.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so they were there one night. Rob
had somebody on each one.
No, Rob sent me down to shoot something, and like 2 phones down, Pete is on the phone talking to his bookie, and he knows what I do, and he's like, it was LSU and Mississippi State. He's, what do you think? I said, where's the game? And it was like Mississippi State was a 2-point favorite at home. I said, I'd go with State. And he plops $500 down. I mean, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, don't do that based on what I said. But I mean, he loved the action.
Yeah.
He just needed the action.
But he's a guy also, I think, in today's time, hey, I'm not very good with my money. I'm not very good with alcohol. I'm not very good with temptation. I need you to keep me straight. You have that handler.
Yeah.
I think if he had that at some point, now he's too proud of a man to do it.
And it was just for the gambling. I don't think he was ever a big drinker.
No, I'm just talking about the vices we have in life.
Sure.
If he had somebody that would have said, Pete, stop. You've got to stop right now. Okay, you don't stop. Now you're in trouble. What do you have to do to get out of trouble? How many times of all of us in our own lives?
Oh, no question.
You are given the blueprint to success or rehabilitation, or here is the path home, and you don't take it.
And here's what I would say to you. And again, every situation is different. If you listen to certain people, they will tell you that David Stern basically told Michael Jordan he had to get out of the NBA for a while because of his gambling. And that's why he went and played with the Birmingham Barons. Obviously, Michael hasn't confirmed that, but I don't think there's ever been any real...
There's a lot of smoke with that rumor.
Denial of that. And then, my gosh, look at what Phil Mickelson did.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was
why can't I think of Billy Walters? You know, he got involved in that stock thing. Billy Walters, who's a Kentucky native, went to jail over that stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that Phil was right in on it. And Phil admitted to putting down a big bet one year on the Ryder Cup. And you know, it's just in one of his final interviews. It was in that series is out. Is it Netflix or who did that? Charlie Hustle.
Yeah, I think it's.
It was just released a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't seen it yet.
So.
But I've heard so many people talk about it. Pete said, "What good is it going to be if they put me in and I'm not here?"
That's right.
And you know, I get that, and it's easy for us to say it's a cautionary tale. But I mean, already, I think within the last couple of years, there have been a couple of minor leaguers who have gotten pinched for betting, and it's. You used the word tragedy earlier. I think that's a really good word because of now legalized gaming, and I'm not moral majority here now or anything. I'm just saying, for gambling to be a part of every sport, and even down to the college level, when you're now required to give injury reports so gamblers can get accurate information.
Sure.
Because it contributes to the overall interest in the sport and everything. I mean, with that going on, it's just, you just hate it.
It's been a tough week there. The Reds did get some positive news last night. Terry Francona
What about that?
will be the new Reds manager coming out of retirement, winning a pair of World Series titles with the Red Sox, taking the Cleveland Indians, because that's what they were at the time, and many people still think they are, and going to the World Series. He has been a 3-time American League Manager of the Year. So now the Reds have what they have not had since Dusty Baker, and that's a proven manager who can take you places. So now we'll see if the Reds, in my humble opinion, can stay out of their own way, let the guy manage, let him do his thing, keep the core players, and put your money where your mouth is.
Do you think he'll bring in Willie Mays Hayes to work with Ellie De La Cruz?
I don't know. They may need Lou Brown.
I'd say Lou's on the unavailable list right now, I believe.
Yeah, to quote Goodwill Hunting, not without a heater and some serious smelling salts. We've got high school football tonight. UK football is off this week after beating Ole Miss on the road.
What a win, huh?
Boy, that fourth down call, 63-yard bomb to Barryon Brown will be talked about for years to come if the Cats can turn this season into something we didn't know we'd have now 3 weeks ago.
And I think this whole staff and the team and everybody's done just an incredible job of making this turn. I mean, they were down for the proverbial count.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Mills Lane was in
they
there
had the
getting ready.
standing 8 count. They had the standing 8 count and holding the glove.
Yeah.
They look at me, talk to me, walk to me. You know?
Right, and so they get this turnaround. And I actually normally when you have a big win, you don't want a bye week, right?
Right.
I think this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
Helps them get healed up, helps them kind of, get back, to earth, and
now get ready to play Vandy, who's not Vandy.
Not anymore.
They are an improved Vanderbilt club, and that's.
But Jay Cutler's not walking through that door.
No, he's not. But that game is next Saturday night. It's a night game, 7:45.
You've got to pace yourself.
Yes.
In the coming week, you've got to start hydrating now, because if you're going to complete the Keeneland Wildcat double,
we talk about completing the parlay on that. Whew.
Take the under.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that and if you don't take the under,
you won't make it out of that parking lot at Kroger Field.
You may be under by the time kickoff starts.
Ossifer!
We need to get out of here and
Yes,
get back
we
to
do.
work. We've also got someone coming into the studio here in a couple of minutes to do some more work. That would be one Bill Bryant. So until next time, America, Dave Baker, Brian Milam, we'll see you. You like that? Wow.